Hello my fellow book addicts, Megan here, and it's time for another video. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Inkheart movie adaptation. Now, Inkheart is a book that I hold near and dear to my heart. It is something my mom found for me back when I was in middle school, and I just fell in love with it. It is a book that I reread for Booktubeathon. It was my first time rereading it in years, and since I'm kind of doing a thing where I am doing videos talking about my opinions on movie adaptations to books. I already did Beastly. Now I'm doing Inkheart. So I can't for the life of me remember if this had a theater release. I'm pretty sure it did. But I remember I didn't see it until it came out on DVD. It was 2009, and I have a distinct memory of one of my friends coming over to my house to watch it. My mom worked at a video store for a while, so we could get movies the weekend before they came out on DVD, as long as, we brought them back in time for release day. So I was the cool kid among my friends because I could get movies early. So this one friend was one of the few people I knew who I was friends with who read Inkheart as well, and she loved it just as much as me. So I have distinct memories of us sitting down and watching it and just being disappointed, for lack of better words, that we made fun of, just some of the added dialogue and how some lines were delivered. And I think that was the last time I saw it. I think I probably only saw this twice, once with her and then maybe once on my own, and that was it. So it's been almost 10 years since I've seen this. So let's get into this. So looking back, it was pretty interesting that they casted Brendan Fraser as Mo. Not that I'm complaining, because I adore Brendan Fraser. I did back then, I still adore him. But just, I don't know, I, for the life of me, can't help but associate him with The Mummy and just action and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So him being cast to play Mo, a bookbinder, I don't know, it was an interesting choice. Not that I'm complaining, like I said. I totally forgot that there was that little, narrated intro talking about what silver tongues are. I have mixed feelings about that. I appreciate that saves, some really awkward and off-putting explaining in the middle of the movie, exposition and all that. But, I don't know, and I don't like how this movie portrayed silver tongues. Mo, at the beginning of the Inkheart book, had no idea anyone but him could do this. And it was a name, a title, that Dustfinger, Basta, and Capricorn gave him. Silvertongue. It's not like it wasn't an overwhelming title or label for everyone who could do that. So I wasn't thrilled with that, and just how it made it seem like this was a label for people who could read things out of books like Mo could. Also, it's been a little while since I've read Inkheart. It was during Booktubeathon, but I could have sworn Mo knew about this gift for years. It wasn't something that he just discovered when he was reading Inkheart with Ressa. And this is a small nitpick. A very small nitpick, but it's a big one. Very rarely, if ever, did Maggie call Mo Dad in the books. For some reason, she would always just call him Mo. So, I don't know why they made that change in the movie, but it's such a tiny thing it shouldn't bug me. But since it's such a tiny thing, it should have been easy to keep true to. Also, stupid little thing, Mo already had a copy of Inkheart. What the heck happened to that copy? Since, he's looking for a copy now and the books are whispering to him to lure him to it. I don't know. I don't like how they had the books whispering to Mo. It seemed weird, but I don't get why they decided to have Mo not have a copy of Inkheart, despite the fact that he would have had to have a copy to read Dustfinger, Capricorn, and Basta out of the book. So it's what happened to that original copy? I don't know, it's something that kind of got to me. One thing that I thought they did was age Maggie up. I didn't mind that too much because I felt her age wasn't too important to the story as a whole. And also, Eleanor's house was gorgeous. Eleanor, the actress they picked for her, was perfection. I just love Eleanor. And I thought that the actress that they had for her did the job really well. Dustfinger, I thought they got a good guy for him. I liked how they did his scars. And one thing I didn't like is how they painted him as a villain so early on. Like, I get they had to condense things since Inkheart is a long book. And long books don't always translate well into movies, especially when they're on a time constraint. I think this was before movies started becoming like 2.5 hours regularly. So, yeah, they had to condense things, they had to push things along, but I didn't like how they painted him as a villain so early on, especially when Dustfinger really isn't a villain. Or at least I don't see him as a villain. He's just this poor guy who just wants to get home. He was dragged out of his world and he just wants to get back. And he can be selfish, yes, but selfishness is a very human emotion. And he's realistic. I like Dustfinger. And just how quickly they paint him as a villain or a bad guy, it made me sad. Also, on the topic of Dustfinger, I didn't like how he seemed to have fire power. Like, I've read the other books. The power that he has over fire is practically supernatural in the Ink world. The flames respond to him well, but part of that is because he has an aide. He has fire elves honey in there. He doesn't have that here. And even it's stated quite a few times in the book, fire in our world behaves differently. It is, I believe, described as deaf and dumb. It doesn't respond to him, it doesn't talk to him like it does in his world. In our world, he has to use aids like matches and gasoline and he has to use aids for his fire shows and his use of fire in our world. So it got to me when, he can summon fire up from nothing in our world. Like, his inability to communicate with fire in our world like he could in his is supposed to add to his loneliness and really emphasize that he is alone in this world and make him more sympathetic in my mind. Aesthetically, it was cool, and if I hadn't read the book and had this background of him that I already had, I probably would have liked it. But since I do have that information, I do have that backstory, it annoys me. The scenery for this movie was gorgeous. It was beautiful. Capricorn's men had kind of a cartoony villain vibe to them, but strangely I thought that it did them justice, because there are parts in Inkheart where the villains, the black coats, black jackets, whatever they were referred to, they came off as very, cartoony-ish, for lack of better words. One little change that I did enjoy in the book, Mo was the one who drove Capricorn and Basta out of his home via sword point. But in the movie, Dustfinger had a bigger role in scaring them off and getting them off. He used fire to help with that. I did like how he got that little moment of heroism. It showed that, yeah, he's not all bad. He can be selfish, he can be manipulative, he can be cowardly, but he does have a good heart. He does feel guilt, he does have a conscience. And I like how that gave him a little moment to shine with that. Darius is exactly how I pictured him, just to the T. Though I wasn't a fan with how all the things that Darius read out of books had letters on them. Instead of, in the book, things weren't read out properly. Like, Ressa was read out without her voice. Flatnose had a crushed nose. I enjoyed that a little better than the lettering on everything. I don't know, I just thought that was weird and random. Won't lie, Brendan Fraser's voice when he was reading aloud was very pleasant to listen to. Like, if he ever narrated audiobooks, I can honestly just picture myself listening to them to fall asleep because it was just so soothing and nice. The line that Capricorn says about duct tape got a little giggle out of me. I remember I laughed at it when I first saw the movie, and even now it's like, okay, that's a funny line. I enjoy that line. Kinda wish we didn't find out about Ressa until the end. Like, I don't know. I did like how her being in it so early made her almost escape all the more heartbreaking. You know, see her family that she's been separated from for like 10 years, be so close but yet so far. Another little change that kind of got to me was Dustfinger was already supposed to know who Ressa was. Like, before the book/movie took place and the time it was. He was supposed to have figured it out. But the fact that he was figuring it out, like, in movie time, if that makes sense. I don't know, that was a weird little change. I felt that showed part of his selfishness and his cowardliness. Bleh. So I don't know, just maybe the movie producers thought that would make him too much like a bad guy, less like a hero. Farid was a precious cinnamon roll. I love him in the books. I love him now in the movie even. Just, he's a precious cinnamon roll and he's amazing. I absolutely love the little flashes we get into the Ink world in the movie. Just one thing, this movie, I reread Inkspell recently, and just between that and this movie, it made me really, really wish we got more on the Ink world, like if the author wrote the actual Inkheart story. Like what is supposed to go on in the pages of Inkheart. Like, I wanted Dustfinger's story. Like, the one that Finoblio, I can never say his name right, wrote. Like, if that makes sense. I want to know the actual story in the pages of Inkheart. Just to see more of this world, to see what it was going to be like. And just, it kills me that we don't have that. Like, I would give anything for that. No joke. And speaking of Finoblio, he is on point. He is very on point, especially in personality. And oh my god, I wanted to give Dustfinger such a big hug when he found out that he dies in the book. Now, jumping forward a bit, the dress that they forced Maggie into during, like, her reading for the Shadow was hideous. Like, holy crap, that thing was just hideous. I do really enjoy how Eleanor did a bit more to help in the movie. Just, I enjoyed that greatly. I have mixed feelings about Maggie being the one to write the final words to save them, and how she wrote them on her arm as she was reading them. Like, I don't know, mixed feelings about that. Like, it makes for, like, a really flashy ending, but just, I don't know, I'm not a fan of it. I also have mixed feelings on how Ressa got her voice back, and holy crap, I forgot that Mo managed to read Dustfinger back into the book. I mean, yay for happy endings. I love happy endings. I'm a sucker for happy endings. But when I first saw this movie, I was furious because it's like, that's not how it ended. How are they gonna do a sequel now? Especially since Farid seemed, you know, not be that sad that Dustfinger is gone, when in the book he really bonded with Dustfinger. He wanted to go into the book with Dustfinger. He wanted to stay with Dustfinger. But, you know, we don't get that nice little bond between them, which makes me sad. Like, things are wrapped up really nicely, and I liked that. The bad guys were defeated, Ressa is reunited with her family and has her voice back, Dustfinger gets to go home. It's all happy, good times, things are wrapped up nice. But young high school Megan was mad because it's like, they can't do a sequel now! Or they're gonna have to change the total beginning of the sequel to make it work. But looking back now from a different perspective, makes me wonder, did they not think they would get a sequel? Did they know a sequel wasn't gonna happen? And so they wanted to wrap things up nice just in case? I mean, that's the logical thing that pops to mind. And if that's so, if they weren't expecting a sequel or they knew they weren't getting a sequel and they decide, you know what, this second one is going to happen, let's just wrap things up nicely now. If that's the reason, then kudos to them. I can appreciate that. So you know what, overall, for a movie adaptation, this one isn't that bad. It's definitely not the worst adaptation I've ever seen. You know, it's fun, it's accurate enough. And now that I'm older, I can understand why the ending might be a bit different than the book. I mean, I honestly rather a movie wrap up nicely and not just assume they're gonna get a sequel to finish things up with. So, you know, I can appreciate that. Despite my issues with the film, it was a decent adaptation. Probably not one I'm gonna sit down and rewatch over and over, but, you know, maybe if I'm bored, put it on every time I reread Inkheart. See one of my favorite books come to life. And yeah, overall, those are my feelings. That's really all I have to say, so yeah. Anyone else out there who has read Inkheart and seen the movie, what are your opinions? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you like it? Did you think it was okay? Did you hate it? What were some things you liked about it? What were some things you hated about it? Let's get a discussion going, and yeah. That is it for this video, and I hope to see you guys next time.